What made life in Iran unbearable that you needed to cross the desert?
So there were problems that all Iranians were dealing with. And it wasn't just unique to Baha'is, such as getting bombed by Iraq. And that
Right.
war went on for 8 years. I talk about this in my book that every Thursday for 8 years, every town in Iran had a mass funeral just because of the boys that would come back from the front line that were killed.
People forget about that war. So you had the Iranian Revolution, and then the first thing they did is go to war against Iraq, right?
Yeah, well,
Or
Iraq
when-
attacked Iran.
Yeah, okay.
But yes, that's exactly what happened. And then on top of that, you have, there wasn't enough food. So food was rationed. You would have to go stand in long lines and get access to, the kind of essentials that you needed. And
why didn't your family leave Iran after the revolution in 79, 80? Because many Baha'is left at that very specific junction.
My parents were not interested to leave because they felt that staying behind when Baha'is are being persecuted, when Baha'is are being killed, is a form of resistance. And particularly my dad did not think that would be a good idea. And but life progressively got worse in Iran. Just politically got worse, and just the environment got worse. We had the war going on, and then the situation for Baha'is. Every day, I remember my dad used to work for the local spiritual assembly of the Baha'is of Tehran, and he would come back home every night, and he would tell us who the government had killed the day before, what Baha'is that my mom and dad knew who was killed. I remember there was this surgeon, Dr. Hakim, that that my mom knew well. One night, told us about him. Another night about my mom's second cousin that was killed, Mr. Roshani. Another time was her second cousin that was killed. It was an ongoing thing all the time.
It went from dozens to hundreds of Baha'is being killed. There was a big outcry from the United Nations and other countries, and then it kind of went more underground, and they would just get disappeared.
That's exactly
much more convenient to just have them disappear than to have them like hung in the public square or shot.
My dad was responsible for writing the correspondence for the local spiritual assembly of Tehran. And I used to go to his office every now and then.
And for those who don't know, the local spiritual assembly is the elected body of 9 Baha'is that govern the affairs of, in this case, the city of Tehran. But there's also the National Spiritual Assembly of Iran that governs the affairs of Iran itself. Again, democratically elected public servants. But all of that Baha'i administration was outlawed once the revolution came into play in 1980. So the Baha'is were not allowed to gather, to meet, or to have an administrative practice in the country of Iran.
That's exactly it. And in Tehran, there were over 100,000 Baha'is. So you can imagine that it requires a system, infrastructure to address the needs of that city. But my dad would take me to his office every now and then that, towards the end of the existence of that office, it was basically underground. Because of the danger that those people were facing. But I would go to his office, and then a few weeks later, they were arrested. This happened multiple times. They would get arrested. They would never be found again, or they would get kidnapped.
So the danger went up through the roof, and especially a danger toward your father.
Yes.
And realizing like this was kind of unsustainable.
That's correct. And then you fast forward to 1981, when I was expelled from school. And that was one of those life moments that is, of course, etched in my mind, and something that I think in many ways shaped who I am today. That's one of those events that shaped me. And so here I am in this middle school. There's one other Baha'i boy, probably about 600 students attend this school. And they had this public mass prayer they would do every day at noon in the school. And then there was this religious teacher responsible to make sure that all the students are good Muslims and so on. And he carried a gun to make sure that was happening.
Sure.
And he would come to us. He would say that you should join us for this mass prayer. And we would politely let him know that as Baha'is, we have our own prayers. And he would be very cordial. He would say, "Oh, okay, fine, no problem. And he would go away. One day, me and this other friend, we are sitting in the classroom, but we can hear his sermon. And during his sermon, he says that today we're going to get rid of the Baha'i boys. We're going to cleanse our school of these Baha'i boys. And of course, what happens is that the school ends, and me and this boy were like, this is going to be an ugly day. We're just sitting in the courtyard of the school, and the faculty are leaving the school. And we asked a few of them, would they give us a ride? Of course, they said no. They themselves, even if they wanted to, they'd be in danger by doing that. So they all left. And I remember that eerie moment that there's us, and then I see 50, 60, I don't know how many kids outside of the school with sticks, rocks, whatever you can imagine, waiting for us. And we kind of looked at each other after a while. We thought, well, they're going to come in if we don't go out. Let's show some courage and walk out. And we did. I called that the bleeding mile. We were about a mile away from home. And
pelted.
Yeah, we were beaten, however you can imagine. We were spit on for about a mile by all these kids. Frankly, I remember that about 10 minutes into it, I was kind of like in the twilight zone. I could not really fully grasp what was going on anymore. I couldn't feel the pain. But I remember looking across the street and looking at all these parents that were passing by and thinking that what has happened to this population? That they become like this. You look at those parents.
Because people are out on the street watching.
They're just
all this.
watching. They're seeing them. They're killing 2 boys. They just don't care. Has God forgotten these people? What has happened to them? And I made it home, and I remember that, I was angry primarily. I was bleeding, but I was angry from all the spit. And you could literally wring out spit out of my clothes. And my hair was flat from spit. And I remember that I wanted to go back and fight them. Luckily my grandmother, my mom's mom, was with us, and she stayed. She basically held me back, let me go out. But that's one of those moments that clearly gets to define you.
Then a decision is made by the family that they need to smuggle you out of the country.
The Soul Boom Podcast. Subscribe now on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and wherever else you get your stupid podcasts.